They warned him 6 times in 5 weeks, and every single one of those warnings is sitting in a filing cabinet with Marcus Hale's signature on it. He dismissed every report, overrode every safety flag, and told the men on that floor to stop catastrophizing and get back to work. So when the number 4 ladle tore apart and the molten iron found him before the alarm finished its first cycle, who was really responsible for what happened next? Ray Kowalski had worked the casting floor at Varden Steel in Gary, Indiana for 19 years. He was 47 years old, broad-shouldered, quiet, the kind of man who double-checked everything twice and never left a shift without briefing the next crew. He had 2 daughters in high school and a wife who packed his lunch every morning without fail. 6 weeks before everything fell apart, he started writing things down. The number 4 ladle, a massive steel vessel carrying molten iron at temperatures above 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit, had developed a crack along its lower support bracket. Not a hairline, a visible fracture Ray could fit 2 fingers into. He photographed it, filled out a maintenance request, and slid it under the supervisor door on a Tuesday morning. Marcus Hale rejected it by Wednesday afternoon. The note back had 4 words: "We are on schedule." Ray folded it and put it in his breast pocket. He did not throw it away. Marcus had been site manager for 3 years and had made one thing perfectly clear in that time. Production numbers were all that mattered. He walked the floor every morning at 6:45 in a clean, hard hat never touched by grease, eyes on the output boards before he looked at a single person. Danny Perez, a 34-year-old line operator, had noticed the ladle's hydraulic tilt arm shuddering during pours, a sign the pressure seals were failing. He told Marcus on a Friday. Marcus told him to stop catastrophizing. Teresa Walcott, the floor safety monitor, submitted a formal written concern on November 3rd, noting the ladle's mandatory 90-day structural inspection was overdue by 23 days. Marcus signed the form and filed it without action. 3 workers, 3 warnings, all dismissed, all documented. The morning of November 14th, Marcus arrived at 6:45. As always, the output board was 2 tons behind target. He called a 4-minute floor meeting and told the crew to pick up the pace. Ray raised his hand and said the number 4 needed to come offline until maintenance could inspect the bracket. When Marcus said they would assess it at end of shift and walked away before Ray could respond. Ray looked at Danny. Danny looked back. Neither said a word. The first pour began at 7:12. The number 4 ladle held 1,400 kilograms of liquid iron at 2,850 degrees Fahrenheit. Ray stood 12 meters away with a clear line of sight to the bracket and watched it as the ladle began its tilt sequence. The hydraulic arm engaged with the same low shudder Danny had reported weeks earlier. For a moment, everything held, and the iron began flowing into the mold. Then the sound came, not a bang, a deep, tearing groan, the kind steel makes when it has been pushed past what it can hold. The lower support bracket gave way on the left side, dropping the ladle's base 40 centimeters in under a second. The tilt arm could not adjust for the sudden shift. Again, the ladle swung hard right, and 1,400 kilograms of liquid iron went with it, not into the mold, but outward across the floor, in a wave moving faster than any man could run. The alarms hit half a second too late. Ray moved left on pure instinct. Danny was already behind a concrete barrier, pulling 2 younger workers down beside him. He said later, "I was screaming their names before I even knew I was doing it." Most of the crew cleared the zone. The iron spread across 9 meters of casting floor, cooling at the edges but still pushing forward. Marcus Hale was standing near the output station on the right side of the ladle, watching the pour. He did not reach the barrier. The iron found him before the alarm finished its first cycle. Ray heard him. He would not talk about what he heard for a long time. 3 other workers sustained burns, 1 serious and 2 moderate. All 3 survived. Emergency services arrived at 7:19. Steam rose from the iron where it met the cooler concrete. Ray stood at the edge of the cleared zone, hands at his sides, looking at the place where Marcus had been standing 7 minutes earlier. The rejection note was still folded in his breast pocket. By 8 o'clock, the facility was locked down. By 8:33, men in suits from the company's legal team were on the floor before the ambulance had finished clearing the site. They went straight to the facility director's office and closed the door. 40 minutes later, a floor supervisor gathered the remaining crew and told them in careful language that they were not to discuss what had happened with anyone outside the building. Anyone who spoke would be in breach of their employment agreement. So Ray stood at the back of the room and felt something cold settle in his chest. The internal incident report filed that afternoon listed the cause as equipment failure due to unforeseen material fatigue. Ray's maintenance request from 6 weeks earlier was not referenced. Teresa Walcott's formal concern, time-stamped November 3rd, was missing from the file entirely. When Teresa asked about it the next morning, she was told the records were under review. She was moved to a different section of the facility by the end of the week. Danny Perez was called into an HR meeting and reminded his probationary review was coming up in December. He said nothing to anyone after that. Ray went home and sat at the kitchen table without eating. His wife asked what was wrong. He told her it had been a hard day. He took out the note and smoothed it flat on the table. We are on schedule. Then he folded it and put it in the drawer by the front door, where he kept things he was not ready to let go of. The company was already building a wall, but Ray had been keeping his own records since the first week of November and had not handed any of them in yet. The OSHA investigation opened on November 21st, 7 days after the failure. Investigators pulling the facility's maintenance logs did not find a gap. They found a pattern. The number 4 ladle had been flagged for structural review 3 times in 8 weeks. Every flag had been acknowledged and deferred. The mandatory 90-day inspection was overdue by 30 days at the time of the failure. The hydraulic tilt arm service, required every 60 days, had not been completed in 94 days. The Gary County Medical Examiner confirmed Marcus Hale died from acute thermal injuries. He was 41 years old. OSHA cited Varden Steel on 6 counts of willful safety violations and issued a penalty of $612,000. No criminal charges were filed. Ray gave his full statement on November 19th and handed over the photographs, the rejection note, and a handwritten log of every warning raised and every dismissal that followed. The lead investigator read through it in silence and said, "This is exactly what we needed." Investigators later confirmed a nearly identical ladle failure had occurred at a Varden Steel facility in Ohio 14 months earlier, resulting in 2 injuries and an internal repair order that was never shared with the Gary site. It had been filed and forgotten. The $612,000 fine was less than 0.3% of Varden Steel's revenue that year. The facility reopened 9 weeks later. Ray still works the casting floor. He checks the equipment himself every morning before the first pour, because he stopped waiting for someone in a clean, hard hat to do it for him. The workers who warned Marcus Hale saw exactly what was coming, said it out loud, wrote it down, and handed it in. That a man had to die before anyone in that building was required to listen is the part none of them will ever fully make peace with.